little bit in time frame to the '73 era of a Willie Mays who's about to say goodbye, who's hobbling around, Yogi Berra, Tug McGraw, anything from there?
Well, yeah. I was in the dugout with Yogi, and the phone rings, and he says, yeah, dugout, and he says, okay, sweetheart, okay. He hangs up the phone, and so I said, Yogi, I hate to ask you this, but who's calling you on the dugout phone? He said, oh, Bill White. I said, Bill White? I said, and you call him sweetheart? No, Bill White, secretary. Speaking about Cooperstown, the Hall of Fame, Steve Jacobson, who was the sports columnist, very fine sports columnist for Newsday for years. Steve and I were in the Otesaga Hotel when the buses were coming up to take the Hall of Fame players to the induction ceremony. And so Steve comes over to Yogi and said, Yogi, he had a baseball. I said, I'd like you to autograph this baseball, but with your full name, Lawrence Peter Berra. So Yogi takes the ball, he has a pen, and he looks at Steve and he says, you know, I haven't written Lawrence Peter Berra in such a long time, I've forgotten how to spell it. It was, now, a lot of times, Yogi, I mean, we think, you know, Joe Garagiola wrote a lot of the Yogi stuff, and he may have, you know, like directions to his house. I mean, but sometimes Yogi said these things, not even trying to be funny. Although one time I was with him when he did try to be funny, and he was. And this is when he was with the Houston Astros. Am I getting off the subject?
No, Yogi's forever a Met.
So he was a coach with the Houston Astros for a short while. So I was in, outside of Orlando, where the Houston Astros trained. Kissimmee. And so in those days, the Houston team had a black jersey, white pants. So I was walking with Yogi along the outfield fence, and some people said, Yogi, can you sign our autograph? So he goes over, and then one woman gives him a pen, and he signs it, and he hands it back, and he said, your pen is leaking. He goes like this, and he said, you know, this jersey used to be white. Now, he was really making a joke. It's the only time I've ever heard Yogi make a joke. But he made a joke. And, but most of the time, Yogi would talk vanilla phrases. I mean, he was a terrible interview, because he would just give you general stuff. And this is regarding Tony Kubek. But remind me, because, when Tony was doing the Game of the Week, he had been a Yankee player, and I was doing the Game of the Week, and I was with Kubek behind the batting cage when it was either the Mets or the Yankees, and either Yogi was with the Mets or he was with the Yankees at the time as a coach or a manager, I remember. And so I was talking with Kubek, and then he saw Yogi walking about 20 feet away. So, and they used to be teammates, of course. And so Yogi's walking, and so Kubek says, hey, Yogi. And he asked him a question. And Yogi gave him one of these vanilla answers. And in all seriousness, now we're talking about the guy who's in more quotes and the quote books than anybody else. And in all seriousness, Kubek said, you know, Yogi, you never say anything. You know, by anything, give me a good, solid, meetable quote. Meetable. So, how about me? I was going to say, Yogi had said directions to his home in New Jersey. And he had said directions were, when you come to a fork in the road, take it, which is a famous quote. he happens to be accurate because there's a road and then there's a tree in the road. And then you can go either way around the tree. When there's a fork in the road, take it. He was being accurate. But I was going to say about Yogi, people, he did go past the 8th grade. And then his first job after grade school, he got a job in a shoe factory in St. Louis. But this is my idea of why Yogi is one of the smartest people I've ever run across. Yogi came into the media spotlight about 1947 when he was a rookie. He was 47, and so for 65 years, and he's now ailing, but he's been he's been in the spotlight for some 65 years. And if you go into a baseball quote book, he and Casey Stengel have by far the most quotes, maybe Babe Ruth, okay, but the guy's just so quoted. And in those 65 years, he has never said anything to get himself into trouble. There has never been a controversy, and the only 2 controversies were not really of his doing. He told Phil Linz to stop playing the harmonica on the bus when the team had lost the game, and that got, there was hardly negative toward him. And then the other thing was he was angry at George Steinbrenner for firing him the way he did after he promised that he was going to save the whole season. And he fires him after, 9 games or something like it in the season. And then for a long time he didn't speak to George. But just think about this. These are the only 2 times that there has been any kind of controversy around Yogi. He was just, to me, it takes a huge intelligence to be talking all this time, answering all the questions, not saying anything, but answering them. And Casey called him my manager on the field, and, to be this great catcher and to call the balls and strikes, and then he becomes a manager, and he wins a pennant in the National League, and he wins a pennant in the American League. I've always been a big fan of. And here's another thing about Yogi. When Yogi, I think that most people would agree, would not be called the Clark Gable of baseball. When he was a rookie in his second, third year, when the Yankees were going to St. Louis, there was a very popular restaurant that all the ball players would go to. And there was really a good-looking waitress. And all the players would hit on the waitress. Yogi married her. Carmen. And I asked Carmen once, I said, Carmen, how did Yogi win your heart? And what did he say? And she said, it was so long ago I don't remember. But it had to be his genuineness, sweetness. I don't know. I mean, who knows what women look like? Some people have asked my wife Dolly, what is it about Ira that, why you married him? And she said, poverty is sexy.